Hello my friends, I am Gosha, this is Cosmic Agency, and we have quite a big video to go through, so I'm not going to go through any unnecessary introductions. This is about the Cabal's attempt to infiltrate primarily Taygetan system in the Pleiades, but I'll also mention some other points here and there. A lot of things to go through, and I am actually sure that these few attempts I will be discussing is not all that happened in the last tens of years, if not centuries. So let's go straight to it. As a disclaimer, let me just say that, of course, here I will be talking about the negative infiltrations, but of course, the positive ones are happening too. All these different light beings and us, the Starseeds, we are having the influence on what's going on. And this is, the ancient battle of good versus evil. But here in this video specifically, we are focusing on the Cabal's attempts on infiltrating other star systems, in this case, Taygeta. So to start, just as a brief introduction for those maybe who are new to the subject and surprised, well, what is the Cabal? The Cabal, in general, that's a very vague, you could say, term to describe secret and not so secret organizations and societies which control the human politics from behind. They are operating in a very compartmentalized manner, so one level doesn't necessarily, most likely, know what those above them are doing. And ultimately, this also connects the most powerful people on Earth with the non-human entities and the Galactic Federation, who controls the Earth. Yes, the Galactic Federation are the absolute managers of the Earth, so we have videos on this if you want to look into that specific subject. So those most powerful people on Earth then are slowly intermeshing in with the Galactic Federation, going from fully human to all the way to full-blown extraterrestrials and everything in between. So that's just like a very general term of what we mean by the Cabal. Okay, before we go into the specific attempts, I will briefly discuss, what they want. The Cabal on Earth and the secret societies behind it, and of course, as I just stated, the regressive ET races behind it, they all have a very disturbing principle and motto, and you already know what this is, and that is: the world is not enough. It was even mentioned in the James Bond movie in 1999. Well, that was the title of that movie. I'm looking at my notes, I have a lot of notes to go through. I have quotes, I have information from Marisva, but also from other Taygetan members of the crew from the past. So according to Marisva, following this motto of owning the world, they already own this one, at least since first half of 19th century, where she's suggesting that's when there was a last social reset. That's a separate subject in itself. So in the way, and very practical also way, not just in a way, they own this society. They have owned this world for quite some time. Who are we referring to? Well, like I said, the Cabal, terrestrial Cabal, but then behind it all, the Galactic Federation. But not just the Galactic Federation in itself in general, but just some murky parts of the Galactic Federation running it from behind. So who else, is there behind? This whole group could be summarized as dark terrestrial minds, remotely controlled and infested by some dark astral entities, and not just remotely controlled, but sometimes fully possessed and taken over. Regressive reptiles, Draco alliances and lineage, Maitre, dark Orion Grace, dark Etorthans, of course. All this is a continuation of Orion Wars. They want to invade because that's what they do. That's what they did for millennia. That's what they did for years before. Even causing the Great Expansion. Great Expansion, how it happened, it was the result of some kind of invading force chasing everybody away and scaring everybody away. So that's what they do. They invade. Now, behind all these entities that I just mentioned, or parallelly to all these different entities that I just mentioned that are probably behind these invasions, we also know that there is this super advanced civilizations consuming AI, assimilating the whole galaxies, Borg type. And we talked about them in the past. We talked about this subject with Aneka, with Varroafera, even with Dorkalel. And this is a type of AI that needs no one. That is programmable, programmed by itself, totally independent. It's cold, non-empathic, and is purely interested in hard logic, with the full and clearly assigned goal to assimilate worlds for its own expansion. Svaroferra once said that that is the threat that humanity faces. That this type of AI, invasive AI, is the most serious danger facing humanity. Not the atomic war, not the reptilians, not the Archons. It is the AI behind it all. Actually, that was Aneka that said that. And we even had the video by Dorkalel where he also mentions that this type of AI invades the minds, invades the DNA of the members of each civilization, not just the computers. You can watch about this in this video where he explained this. This is very important. It actually messes with the values of the society. You don't even know you are being invaded. There are indications, there are clues, so you have to pay attention. Dorkalel mentions this in this video, but it tampers with the DNA and with the mind sometimes, and the civilization that doesn't know. It just contaminates the values of the civilization, and it controls their minds a little by little, inserting concepts that, and this is a quote, alter the way of life and priorities of a civilization in the direction of the interests of the Borg, not with weapons, but with that type of mind control. So this is all very interesting and also should be considered. Mari hasn't been talking much about this type of invasive AI, so I'm not sure what their stance is on this topic specifically, if they still believe that this type of civilizations consuming AI still poses a threat or not. Maybe she can make the video about this in the future, I'm not sure, but I'm mentioning this because it was talked about in the past. Now, what do they want? Before we go into the specific attempts, of course, what do they want? Let's go back now to the level here, more mundane, from that galaxies called consuming AI. Let's come here. What do they want, the Cabal? Well, we all know they want power of all kinds, right? All types of power, from technological to political. And, they continue to consume and invade other systems and planets. And that's why I mentioned this AI thing, because I feel like it's aligned with the goals of that invasive AI. It could be just working hand in hand, and maybe even those regressive entities invading and expanding, maybe under the influence of that super advanced AI, may not even know it, maybe cooperating, who knows, but it's all aligned in goals. Venus, for example, let's not even go to Taygeta yet. Venus has been already taken. And if there is such a thing as natives of Venus, and that's a separate subject, those have been extinct or incorporated into the normal population about 50 to 80 years ago. And I'm talking about normal population. I mean, basically humans transported from Earth and implanted there from Earth, mixing, okay? Many people were reported to disappear in the 60s, for example. This also goes into the whole Vietnam War. And this video talks about this subject. It's very, very important, about the takeover of Venus. And now they are interested, and now and always has been interested in Taygeta. And not only Taygeta, the whole M45, which means Pleiades. So these are very, very advanced and well-developed networks of people on Earth and non-human networks planning and working to invade Taygeta. And they have been planning to create this civilization, which is an annex to the civilization they have right now. And you know, Taygeta has always been desired by the Cabal, and there are very varied reasons for that. It goes all the way back in history, so we're not going to have time to go through everything. But in the recent years, what they wanted to do is to dominate the Taygetan society with the puppet queen, removing the real queen, okay? And there has been several attempts to do this, and I'm going to go over this briefly and not so briefly. As you know, and some of you may not know, right now, well, since 2017, 2018, Taygeta has returned to the monarchic style. Okay, it has been vacant for a long time. The society was just run by the High Council, which is sort of like a Senate, sort of approximate equivalent according to the Earth standards. But in 2017, I'm gonna go through that, why that happened. They established royalty again, okay, and that was Alanim. That was one of the reasons. The Cabal's attempting to invade was one of the reasons why this happened. So what the Cabal wanted to do is remove the High Council or infiltrate the High Council with their Earth Cabal members and impose an Earth-style monarchy. Now, this topic has never been talked about by the Taygetans before in our interactions, or very, very, very little. Actually, until 2021, when the infiltration happened. I'm going to talk about this too because it's one of the attempts. Okay, but before, when we met with the Taygetans, Alanim was just becoming a queen. We didn't know the whole political situation at that time. And then the Taygetans were sent back, and there were very few of them left on board. They had a lot of technical problems. Then they started to have problems with supplies, not allowing any new crew members. Alanim were very isolated, so there was this mistrust towards anybody new coming in and helping them from Taygeta, but we never knew in detail why. Just that there are some inner political situations. And I think that they didn't want to go into this too much because I think at that time they were a bit ashamed. And that's my feeling, meaning that they knew that there is this image of the Taygetans, of the Pleiadians in general, and of ET races out there. There is this image of this, light and order and peace. And I remember Aneka was reluctant to maybe go into more of these dirty problems happening because, like we always say, and the Taygetans always say now, they didn't want to offend people too much or create this dissonance too much. They didn't know if we were ready for that. I remember even talking about weapons. Didn't want to go into the fact that they are militarized. Like, are you sure you want to talk about this military ship that we have? It's a bit, we don't want to come across as belligerent. Like, that's exactly their literal words. And Aneka said that. We don't want to come across as belligerent. And what is that? I mean, you are what you are, and we have to reshape that misconception that people have, because of the new age programming and all that, about what life is out there. But they just didn't want to go into that much. So we didn't know much about these problems. They didn't talk about this much. I remember I was very surprised. Like, okay, you are very few on board. You have these technical problems. You don't have many supplies. You have to have rations. Like, what's happening? Why don't you just go and get some, more supplies? Or why don't you just, invite more people to come? For sure, there's going to be people wanting to come to be with you on the spaceship. Like, I don't believe that in the 38 million society members, only 30 want to be in space on this expedition. But they were very vague about why, what's happening. It didn't go into the details. Only now we understand, with you getting to know this all these behind the scenes topics. Well, there were some behind the scenes situations, of course, which we knew about. Some of them we shared. One of them was that big infiltration that happened. So I'm going to go to that as well. But about the political situation, the Cabal invading, we didn't know that much. So now let's go to the attempts, different types of attempts. And I'm not going to go into the attempts that were probably happening before 1930s, 1940s. I don't know what happened before that, and why we don't hear much about the Cabal wanting to invade back then. I mean, Mari is talking about that 200 years ago, something big happened. Something big happened 2 years ago, probably, maybe even the last deluge, flood, resets, and all that. So there's a lot of mystery there in those times, even going back a century back. But let's begin from the Nazis' times, because this is where kind of we can clearly see the attempts to go out and invade other systems. Athena here says they have tried to invade between 1938 and 1945, entering through Sindriel with Nazis, with Sindriel. And Sindriel, what is that? That's a Taygetan colony. It's the only colony Taygetans have outside their Taygetan system. And Nazis try to travel there using their developing secret Haunebu flying sources. And they have received this technology, probably talking to Grace, Maitre. As Aneka explained, only experimental data was given, not complete. That's why those ships didn't really work fully, okay? I actually have a very small conversation with Dale, with Aneka, talking about this topic of those Haunebu, okay? So I'll share that at some point. Sindriel is a very high frequency, very mystical place. So it protected itself, okay? No hostile takeover happened. The Nazis were unsuccessful. They were also unsuccessful. They were also unsuccessful going there through portals, because machines, the portal machine technology couldn't emulate the frequency needed to jump there. It was just too much incompatibility. It was just so high. So they were trying to go there with these physical ships, and that didn't work out very much either. And Aneka explained that Hitler was probably an organic portal for reptiles, okay? And reptiles, the negative reptiles, have this spreading instinct. Spreading that's their nature. A quote from Hitler in 1938, "We need room to breathe." So constant expansion, and probably an organic portal for reptiles. I'm going to go through very interesting points very soon, so stay with me. I'm going through my notes. Now, this whole thing of Hitler and Nazis wanting to go there and, preserving this Aryan race. What is that Aryan race race. I'm also going to share this in one of the short conversations with Aneka at some point. But she explained that there's two main Caucasian race people. And the first one is Atlantis base, and that's compatible with being organic portal to reptiles. And the other one is Slavic. Oh, I'm Polish. I'm from the Slavic line. That's good. So she says that the second one, the Slavic ones, burn the reptiles if they get close. So in a way, they're always fighting each other in order to suppress the Slavic genes that are incompatible with the reptilians. So in the West, we have Ireland, Scotland, Celts, and we have now very mixed genes there. Some are Atlantis-based, others are Slavic. And as Aneka explains, the Aryan race, it's supposedly pure reptilian compatible race that serves well as organic portals. So that's, I think, what Hitler was trying to do with this Aryan race, among other reasons. Because what these reptilians, and not only reptilians, astral beings, dark infested, draconians, they need biosuits. And that's going to be an important point, I think, with which I'll end also. They need biosuits here, human biosuits, organic portals, compatible with their reptilian or whatever soul. In other words, humans who look humans but are not, because that's their way to go out and invade, okay? Because they cannot go really with the technology, right? We are just talking about the terrestrial, supposedly confined reptilian and whatever technology. They cannot do that, or their frequency is not totally there, or they cannot just go out and militarily invade, even if they are shady elements within the Federation. They cannot just go out there and invade in a military way. They use infiltrations as their method. And that means infiltrating Lyrians, organic portals, and they are trying to make them compatible with their reptilian or whoever is managing that, even AI, with their goals. Because the human biosuit is essential. And this is something that Svaru said. Human biosuit is essential for reptiles and other regressive races, because without the human body, they cannot go far or inhabit certain planets and not invade. So they could escape through portals or whatever. However, the greater portal for them is go invading, infiltrating the human body, because this way they can pretend to be the good guys, pretend to be innocent, and go anywhere in the universe this way. And Svaru Vera said that's exactly right. That's what they do, and that's why the infiltrations, that's their methods through the human organic portals, through the human vessels, if not with the technology, totally militarily invading other civilizations. Infiltrations, that's their methods. That's how it has been for a very long time. Here, in this conversation, Robert is talking with Aneka, and he asked, why Taygeta and why not invade Electra, for example? And well, Aneka is explaining that that's because, and I'm going to read this, simple, she says, because it turns out that since ancient Gnostic barbarian German texts, it is said that the Aryan race descends from the stars. Hence, their interest in going to Aldebaran, which in itself means that it is Taygeta that they desire. And they want Taygeta because it is the cradle, or the origin of the Aryan race, according to Hitler and company. in the minds of the Nazis who still rule the world, Taygeta is their origin. It belongs to them. Athena also says here, well, they also want Electra, but Electra is stronger militarily than Taygeta, not as involved here, not as close, for example, not right now. And they see the possibilities to enter through Taygeta because its royalty has links with that of the Earth. Okay, there's this very deep connection here with the links of certain ancient stories here that developed on Earth. And Electra is more closed. Electra, that's Engans. It's more closed as a society, more difficult to reach. So they see Taygeta more vulnerable, you know, and Taygetans are here. They are more involved. They have been with many, many links to Earth. And, you know, they're not just one of those races that minds their business somewhere else. And Athena here also mentioned in this conversation that, now, in theory, the Cabal couldn't invade Taygeta because the Federation itself wouldn't allow them, right? So she says it is evident that from one level or another, they still believe they can go out and invade planets with the human Pentagon mentality. But that mentality is contained on Earth in theory. These are just their dreams, fostering treaties with people who are outside of Earth, who have their own interests, and developing technologies to leave Earth by ship, since the portals are impractical because they are too small for invasion. And then she says, well, Federation wouldn't allow that in theory. It is allowing, though. And that's why we know that the Federation must be involved, Gosia. This is what Athena said here. It was also easy for them, they believe, to be involved with the Taygeta, the invaders connected to the Galactic Federation, because before, until very recently, Taygeta was the right hand and sort of the war force of the Federation. They were like the Galactic Federation itself until recently. So they had the connection. They had their hands on Taygeta in that sense. It was only with the coming to power of Alanim towards the end of 2018, early 2019, that Taygeta broke away from that, okay? They broke away. They were starting to realize more and more all these problems, and they were breaking away from their connections with the Federation, although they still are in theory, you know, they are. So before, like I said earlier, the society was with a vacant throne that was governed by the High Council, which was also composed of the representatives of the Galactic Federation. So it seemed like the Federation, whoever shady elements, they have easy access there because of years of cooperation that Taygeta had with the Galactic Federation. So now let's go through all these different 3 attempts after Nazis that was unsuccessful, of removing the queen, or actually putting, you know, the puppet queen in place, and this way gain access to the control. And that's what they try to do. They try to control both sides of Taygetan politics. The High Council, which we now understand was already under their control, and they didn't control royalty yet. So kind of the High Council is like a Senate, and they control that at that time, and they didn't control the royal part yet in those times, 2017, 2018. So the first attempt to install this puppet queen was prevented when the remaining good members of the old Taygetan High Council managed to place their former queen Alanim in power. And then they were replaced by the members of the High Council who were loyal to the Earth Cabal. I know, politics, but that's what's going on. So I do remember that time when Alanim became queen, and again, the ship was aging, there was no help, there was few supplies. I never understood why they isolated themselves, didn't trust anybody to come in. So yeah, I found it like strange, like intriguing. What's happening with that? But like I said, they didn't want to reveal too much. Something was said, but not too much. I think because also they didn't know how far we could understand it. You know, they didn't want to, like, I think, endanger the the friendship here, because they didn't know how much of this we would be able to assimilate. So now, okay, this was the second attempt, and that happened around 2021. Yes, and that directly affected us here on Earth, Robert and I. And you who have been following us for a while, you will know what I'm talking about. This is this great infiltration that happened. And I'm going to go through some of the elements of the story, not everything, because it's too much. We actually have a video about this, but whatever. It's a very long video. Not everybody was ready to hear this. We also like doubting whether we should talk. Actually, we felt the same like the Taygetans before publishing the story, because like, is this going to be too much for the people? I don't think people will understand the complexity of this whole situation. Like, will they believe this is like sci-fi story? No. So we shared it, and we had to. There was no other alternative for us at that time, because the infiltration that happened was causing some damage there. So we had to explain the story. So since Alec was isolated, okay, and guarded heavily, like I just said, you know, she was isolated, guarded, protected, the Cabal came up with another plan. What do? Like I said before, infiltrate. That's what they like to do. They like to operate through their infiltrated members. So they infiltrated through contacting Taygetans from below as just another contactees. At that time, Taygetans were still open to talk to other people, and that's when we met who I call Esther and Marina. Esther and Marina, okay, and they become another friends, contactees. As it turned out, when the Taygetans did the analysis of who they were, connection with Taygeta, well, it came up, kind of like in my story, right? My immersion story. So it came up that Esther was in the immersion pod, and that she was actually Alec's daughter in the future, that came here to warn her of certain things. Okay, so that was Esther's story, and Marina's story was, they were friends, was that, and this came out as a result of a lot of intelligence operations conducted by the Taygetans at that time. In fact, that story was so big that we were slowly given this information. We were involved because Esther was actually staying in the apartment, our apartment here in Finland. She came to Finland, she decided to stay there, and I gave her my room. I went to live with Matthias, and that's where she lived at the Roberts place for a couple of months, and we were friends at that time, hanging out together, talking, and you know, all that. But then this intelligence conclusions came that that something was very off about this, and this was so big that we were giving information little by little. And Athena said, I'm going to read here. She said, "It is so sensitive that for your security you cannot know until we can understand more. It's not a lack of trust, it's just that there are some things we cannot tell you yet, because not everything can always be shared, not at every moment. It compromises or could compromise an ongoing operation, for example." So as you see, this is how it's always been. When they had some delicate situation, we're always on standby, watching until more information could be given or not, depends on the situation. Here, we were given the story eventually, and it was incredible. So what we found out was that between 2010 and 2014, there was an extraterrestrial person, and we call this person in the story, in the video, Starlet. And she was here on Earth, passing off as a human. She was a total step down, passing off as a human. She was discovered to be managing, to have been managing, to had managed trafficking networks, drug and human trafficking, all to do with some kind of world dominance network, from there to invade Taygeta, as always has been a plan. Also, Jesuits were involved. It was very, very, very huge. We were actually advised at that time not to even go into that much in the public, because it was so delicate, that story. So again, Esther and Marina, two contactees, right? Friends. Esther living in our apartment, Marina, her friend. It turned out that Marina was remotely controlled, partially or fully by the immersion, by Starlet as her avatar. And that Starlet from Taygeta, among many other shady activities, has conspired with another girl up there in Taygeta to go into the immersion and to pass as Alanim's future daughter, okay, to enter Earth as a human, as Esther, and to approach Queen Alanim, because otherwise Queen Alanim was very difficult to approach. Okay, she was heavily guarded by special forces all the time. No one could approach her. So another infiltration plan in the form of innocent humans with Esther as her future daughter and wanting extraction. That's the first thing they wanted to do. They were preparing for the extraction. I remember very specifically Esther and Marina preparing their stuff, selling their stuff, organizing everything, closing their links with the Earth. Just that, going, super young. We are not any time, ready for the extraction. If we had to, yes, but there is work to be done. But I remember Estelle told me, this divulgation, this disclosure is not my goal. It's not my primary goal here. I remember she said that. So they wanted the extraction with the intent to dominate Alanim by pretending to be her daughter from the future, and by this way, by removing Alanim from her position, Esther becoming a queen, a puppet queen. So Esther was a Trojan horse. She was an imposter, okay? And it almost worked. That plan almost worked because she was almost extracted. There was one time when she was coming from another location to Finland, and she was going through heavy winter circumstances, and Taygetans were, at that time they thought she's Alanim's future daughter. So they were super, 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 protective of her, super, super, on eggshell around her. And they almost extracted her because she was in trouble, it seemed, because of weather conditions. I'm going to share a video, which is going to be very interesting for you, when actually Dorkalel is talking about this mission, this operation. This was with Ragel. Ragel and, DK is talking about it, but Ragel was involved. And he is discussing how the ship was there following Esther and, all the operation that happened. So I'm going to share that video next. Eventually, I'm skipping a lot of details here. Eventually, Starlet was arrested. It was all found out. The communication was cut with those two contactees, which, by the way, on the website, there is a section of transcripts called attaché, English and Spanish. And that's the information that Taygetans gave to them, okay? Because in that time, they were making videos. And these are their conversations. I have posted this, translating this into English, because some of videos were only in Spanish, because it's a valid information, okay? It's their information. It doesn't belong to them, to those two infiltrators. It belongs to the Taygetan, so it belongs on the website. So when you hear about Mari's story, because this is very heavily connected with Mari's arrival, Mari arrival actually has to do with chasing the rogue pilot. Do you remember Mari talks about her arrival, how she was chasing the rogue pilot and she ended up in this timeline? Well, rogue pilot, that starlet, that crooked ET person managing Esther and Marina and this whole operation of trying to infiltrate from inside. The rogue pilot was detained in this operation by Athena and Mari, and over 50 people were detained on her team. I don't know who Cabal members from the Earth and who crooked Taygetans. However, that was already happening in 2021. It was very difficult for us. It was super draining. I remember because this was our friend. She was staying in our place. So it was emotionally shocking to us. And that's why maybe I always say all these things that Mari is talking about. Yes, of course, it's a new level of amazement and shock, all these different betrayals and infiltrations. However, it's not the first time that the Cabal has been trying its tricks to dominate and enter Taygeta, and this happened in 2021 directly through us. I mean, we were friends with that person here, and since that time, I always say I don't trust anybody, and that's not because I don't trust them at the time. I mean to say I don't know what that person will become in the future. That's what I mean. And this relates to everybody the same. It doesn't matter. There are good intentions. If I feel good with them, and most people I do feel good about, I feel great about. But there is that wall in me now, meaning I'm prepared for anything. It's not that I don't trust you right now. I do. But there is a wall of being mentally prepared for anything to happen in the future around that person. Because that Esther and Marina story, they were friends, super supporters, and we supported them. How many people I sent to their channel and all that. And then they turned against everything. But that's the story. That's why. That's why we had to explain the story, because they just came up and they started to talk bad about Taygetans, but if we left it there, people wouldn't understand why. Well, this is the deeper why. The story of infiltration. That's just amazing. Let's continue. The latest attempt happened now with Mari. And this happened in the end of 2024. This was already their most desperate attempt. Before it was, but it was infiltrations, trying to have this puppet queen. This is the most desperate now. This was assassination attempts. So now they were trying to install this puppet queen when Mari was appointed to replace Queen Alunen, who was abdicating. So the plan was to remove and assassinate her, first Alunen, leaving the Taygetan throne vacant, and impose the president of the High Council, who is now arrested, as their puppet queen. That's another betrayal, because I remember even talking to that person. I remember that person, Muna, president of the High Council at the time, she even came talking to us a few times. She even traveled here to Tolega at some point to kind of assess the situation, what's going on with the different things. And we had a few conversations. So it's just a lot of betrayals. But I'm telling you the story, and I'm telling you the story of the Esther and Marina infiltration also, because you can see how it all connects, okay? It's not just something random that happened now, like, oh my God, I'm in shock, because maybe you came to this whole Taygetan disclosure in 2022 or 2021 or 2023 or this year, and you're finding this out, like, wow, out of the blue, right? Well, it's not out of the blue. It has its history and it has its track. It's several different attempts, many different attempts. This is old news, just in a different way. And the most desperate now attempt done by assassination almost worked. So all this can only be done with the cooperation of the shady, high-ranking members of the Galactic Federation. Okay, this is how they work. They work through others who are under their control, the so-called Earth Cabal, or cooperative non-terrestrial members of the society, infiltrating there, infiltrating that way, pretending this, pretending there. But it had to be done through, with the permission and the cooperation from the Galactic Federation. So now, just to give you, I'm not going to go into this because Mari talks about this in her channel in detail. This is all in the last months of the last year. But basically, the whole High Council in Temer was actually discovered guilty, that it was actually them who were planning this assassination attempt. Okay, of course, High Council in Temer, connected to the Cabal on Earth, connected to the shady elements of the Federation, connected to astral entities, connected to, regressive races out there, and who knows, connected to invasive AI. It's all connected. But let's say High Council in Temer was found guilty of big variety of crimes, and all with the goal to develop and put in action this very slow invasion of a Taygetan society, gradually infiltrating the members of the high-ranking positions within the Taygetan society, gradually introducing different customs, gradually introducing new values, and distorting and contaminating that society from within. And this is also, like I said, it relates to the AI, that Borg mentality of slowly corrupting the civilizations, making them theirs. I don't know, I'm throwing it out there as a possibility because it was mentioned in the past. So then it was discovered, I'm making a huge summary of this, that 14 out of 19 High Council members were actually non-Taygetans. They were actually agents of human government, infiltrating as innocent-looking humans. Some were Taygetans, but under the great influence of the terrestrial society and already known for their repeated attempts to infiltrate with the Cabal. So that's why if some of you ask, how could they want that, the Taygetans, where they were not Taygetans. How did they arrive? Well, this is also very interesting and very illuminating, with the cooperation of the human secret space program. I know that we said in the past, because this is what the Taygetans, I think, believed in that time, it seemed like the secret space program was dismantled at some point and they were prevented from going anywhere. However, now we are finding out with Mari's discoveries that they are actually using Alpha Centauri's cooperation to smuggle these people out of Earth. And they are using their identities, records, and electronic codes from Alpha Centauri starship transporters. So they are passing as Alphatans, so no one suspects anything. Because as we have been explaining in all our channels, the Centaurists are pawns of the dark side of the Federation, just following their orders. And they are known to be always coming and going. They are very busy around Earth and other planets as well. And recently, even I think in the last year, and the end of the last year, they were seen leaving and coming into Central Australia, like something was going on there as another hub for them, apart from Antarctica. So yes, so Secret Space Program, Earth Cabal, using Centauri's transporters, also use of portals to smuggle these Cabal members back and forth is not ruled out. But Mari explains with the ship it is more convincing and it's easier. Why? Because Taygeta has very sophisticated detection systems, is a part of the whole planetary defense mechanism to detect portals. So it would be, to detect movement through the portals. And it would be easier through normal ship because the immigration procedures and controls are actually poor there, because the inhabitants of Taygeta, the real ones, the native ones, they never saw the need for strict control mechanisms. Why? Because they depend on more sophisticated technological detection systems to prevent all these different evil things from entering the planets. So that's why it was easier for these Cabal members to just hop on the ship with the Alphatans or using, whatever their technology with the Alphatan transporters, and just land in Taygeta like nothing. Like I said, and this is an important point, portals are not necessary if they can operate through the human, innocent-looking organic portals. That's the absolute and ultimate jump room. A human body, a human mind, a human vessel. And the reptiles operate from the astral, and other negative races also operate from the astral this way too, remotely controlling different human-looking people who are not humans in the end. So for now, as the situation stands, the entire High Council of the Taygetan civilization has been arrested by the Taygetan army. So their plans were stopped. And in total, there are 115 arrests of Earth Cabal members in Taygeta who were smuggled. If I remember the number correctly, the number went up later, but I'm not sure if it combined all the Pleiades. 115, that's what I remember, arrest of Earth Cabal members who were smuggled into Taygeta, into high-ranking positions. And not only high-ranking positions, just to have their life there. And many of them, for example, who faked their deaths on Earth, and then, rejuvenating themselves by abusing the Taygetan wetbots technology, and to just live their life there. So, as I said, the invasion cannot really, or most likely, happen in an open way. What they do is they infiltrate. And it's also easier for them this way to infiltrate because it gives them the field of a maneuver to also play good guys on the other side, because they are always working in duality. They cannot just come out and be evil. That's not how they like to play this game. They like to go there and pretend they are liberators, officially prohibiting military invasions, but then allowing infiltrations behind everybody's back. So that's how they work. That's how they operate, infiltrating in all kinds of ways, like it was even in the whole papaya situation, invading our vessels, our souls with some nano stuff. And why? Because they need to be us. They need to be human vessels. They need to control the human vessel. They needed to have humans operating as them through which to invade other civilization. Maybe that's what all this technology giving to the Nazis, or in the time of the war, was about. They were giving the governments the technology, so then the humans can cooperate with them in those secret infiltration operations. I'll give you the technology, but you'll go with me infiltrate now. I need you. I need your, vessels. I need the organic portals. Because, like I said, the murky elements of the Galactic Federation, they're not going to just openly invade. They are probably not even Lyrian looking. So how are they going to infiltrate if they don't look humans? They need to corrupt human-looking vessels. It's hard to corrupt ET people, just like that, right, out there. But it is easier to use humans from Earth because they are already done in a way. They are already manipulated. The field has been prepared. The soup has been cooking here for a very long time. They were always interested in making people of this planet compatible with all kinds of dark agendas, and they all connect one way or another. In the ancient past, they tried to manipulate people in the labs, mutate their genetics or something. It didn't work very well. When then they tried to mentally limit them and influence them with manipulations and with fears, also with all kinds of nanotech and black goo contained in the papayas recently, also that connects with the invasive AI. It's all in the effort to make the vessel, the human biosuit, compatible with their needs, and with sometimes make it compatible for their astral telepathic attempts to take over. That's why, for me, we always say that this is the war for human consciousness and for human minds. But what I see here is that this is also a war for the human vessel. This is the war for the biosuit, which can be used now in many, 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 many ways, controlled remotely or not, possessed, taken over, immersed from some remote location. If you make this vessel compatible enough, it can be used for good and for bad. And in this case, it is used to infiltrate positive Lyrian societies, using other Lyrians from Earth, who have been under this attack to become genetically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, mentally compatible with all kinds of negative stuff from all sides. Seriously, physically, mentally, technology, thrown into our bodies, sprayed over, poisons everywhere, and then mentally preparing us for some kind of compatibility there. So then they can go infiltrate. This is the best way to infiltrate, to become who you want to dominate. So in this case, become Illyrian. That's why I don't even believe that these people who have been invading Taygeta are humans. Yeah, they are in the human vessels. There are some, terrestrial cabal looking humans, whatever, but they are not us. The human biosuit is anything, okay, or is to host anything. The humans may all look alike. I think this is what Mari said, but inside they are all very different. They are hosts to different types of entities, and they are physical bodies that are designed to be compatible with a huge variety of vibrational frequencies. So, as Mari said, forget about appearances. Not everyone out there is human. Of course, from the highest perspective, it's all about the mind, yes, and the consciousness, dominating consciousness, because I said this is not just a war for the human minds, but also for the human vessels. In the end, it does go back to the mind, because in the end, it is about your vibration. So no matter what they try to do with your body and dominating that body to make it genetically or whatever, however compatible with their shady things, it's your vibration in the end that protects from all that. So no need to be afraid. Just keep standing in your shining frequency, of course, and that's that. It's very interesting that all these attempts, the 3 attempts to do with the Queen, happened in the last 7 years since I came to Earth. Like, again, I'm noting a strange coincidence here. Like, I came here and this all happened in that time. Just saying that, it happened since 2017. And I came here in 2017 and I have seen all these 3 attempts. And who knows how many others actually happened, because for sure we don't have access, none of us here, to the whole story, and that's how it should be. There are reasons not to go into everything. Mari, in fact, is going into a lot, but she's doing the best to make you all see what's going on and how it is all connected, what's happening on Earth, what's happening in space. It's very interrelated. People just seeing a small portion of the dynamic of the situation on Earth. They are really, really just seeing an iceberg of the overall exopolitical mess that we are all part of. So for now, this is it. There are so many different threads I could develop here and there, but at some point I have to stop because the video will be super long. So thank you guys for watching, and go visit Mari's channel. This is Svaro Oficial, where she's sharing all these exopolitical situations in detail there, what's allowed to know and what's you know, what you can and should know, and where you can participate, where you can listen directly from her. Thank you very much again. I'm gonna see you now next in the Space Academy Class 6. That's gonna be the next video. Visit Space Academy Sector Earth. That's my other parallel channel I'm running at the moment, where I'm kind of developing a different format to present all these different points and to include maybe some newer people into this disclosure. Thank you again, and I'm going to see you next time.